The beginning of the end, the Tenjin project. We're finally wrapping it up with a 13-part series. So this is the 13th episode and final one. So look at this. This is the outcome of everything that we learned, and we're gonna introduce some new things this episode as well, like resin pouring to make it look like water, combining different voltages to power all the different LED strips, LED bulbs, and insulating for resin pouring, which I didn't do very well, and you'll see why. I'm gonna make a few fuck-ups, but that's okay, we're gonna get through them. So yeah, this is the outcome of the previous video, making the Tenjin modular, making him removable, so you can put him back on top with the LEDs automatically working, and you can remove him for viewing. But where we left off last time was with the base hollowed and then filled with super glue, not resin, super glue. That's right, a bit crazy, but it worked. So now we actually need to make the LEDs and attach them to a base and attach the base to the bottom of the base, if that makes sense. So inside, like I mentioned, it is a bit messy, but once it's down on a table or something, or on a platform, you can't see the inside. And anyway, you could block off the inside. We could fill it with concrete for all we wanted to. I mean, I've been doing some concrete pouring for some home renovations, so we could do that, and it would make it feel super premium, to be honest. It would hide every single thing inside, but in case it breaks, then we wouldn't be able to fix it, would we? So might not be the best idea to make it filled with concrete, because then we would have to destroy it to open it up and replace any broken components. I mean, to be honest, with all these LEDs, they are super durable, and they last many years actually. So I don't even think I've had an LED strip break that where it wasn't my fault. I think the only time the LED strips break is if you bash it or something, or rip it. I don't think I had one died by itself. But yeah, just testing a few animations with how it's going to look with the base. As you can see, I've cut a strip onto this plastic piece that I cut out, and then use 3M tape to secure them in place, and then soldered it together in a zigzag fashion. And now we're going to super glue this whole base to the bottom of the base, so it's going to be nice and secured. So although I said if I seal it I won't be able to remove it, I am super gluing parts together so they are staying in place. Obviously it's possible to make this super neat and modular, but I'm not really interested in modifying this whole project in terms of the 3D STL files. I just want to get things done because everything's already printed, painted, and to be honest, I'm trying to get rid of the OCD factor that's in my head with making everything obsessively clean and tidy. I mean, nothing lasts forever. Hey, this whole model that I'm doing, for all I know, it could be destroyed in the next 10 years. You know, nothing lasts forever, so just let it go. Let the OCD go. It's okay. It's okay if it's a little bit messy on the inside. I guess that's my excuse for making it messy. Yes, that would be my excuse. Anyway, let's get on to the portal. So remember guys, we made the portal in clear resin and we spray coated it with gloss. I don't remember which one. I have a massive video about the clear resin prints and how to make them super transparent. Yeah, remember, we do have some flaws in this clear resin print of the portal itself, so it looks like a bit bubbly actually. So it's not flawless at all, but it's fine with me. I actually like the way it looks, so that's another excuse. Hey, I'm just joking guys, it looks great to me. I love the way it looks. So to get the actual strips inside the wooden gate, I used a wooden stick and I secured the wires with some insulation tape to get the wires through, because the wires are very flexible and bendy, and that way we managed to get the wires in and get the LED strips aligned correctly so that everything fits well. This is what I'm talking about. You see me wrapping some insulation tape around the wire and the wooden stick so that it wouldn't flex, so that I could pass the wire through. And now that we've got the wires through, we can actually join the wires together, not mixing the voltages. So remember, we've got different set of voltages in the in the Tenjin compared to the LED strips, so we need to make sure they are separate. But I'm going to do some testing before we get to that. of different animations to see if they work and that they flow together, because I need to make sure that the order of the LED strips is correct, so that the portal swirls in a circle rather than just going fully down. Okay, so I couldn't really film this because it was quite intense in terms of how I hold it, and I need to make sure that these areas glue together correctly. So I flipped it upside down because I need a lot of pressure on the bottom so they connect correctly. And yeah, it's slightly angled, but I'm also testing all the lights so everything works correctly. It looks incredible. I'm like in love with this piece. There's a lot of wires going on here, so we've got one here, 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 and then the samurai himself. Okay, with the roof all super glued together and everything functional, we can actually get the input jack connected. Now we don't have a slot, so we need to make one. So I'm gonna, well, I did use a Dremel with a sanding tool, sanding drum. I think it's like an 80 grit drum, and then we need to get rid of that resin. Now I get a lot of people messaging me saying that I shouldn't be sanding resin, and yeah, I get that, but God, my lungs are full of everything, to be honest. So I don't really care, to be honest. Whatever happens, happens. My lungs are full of dust, paint, sand, wood, metal, whatever. But thanks for the advice, guys. I mean, I get it. You're coming from a good place. So we're going to be mixing up different voltages. So the Tenjin, the LEDs for the eyes, the sole, and the blade are running on 12 volts LED bulbs, whilst the rest is using LED strips that are running on 5 volts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the DC input at 12 volts mixed with the connectors that I manually put in here. So I'm going to be taking in 12 volts input, and then I'm going to use buck converters to step it down 5 volts after the 12 volts. So let's bridge them together, and so we could join it to the buck converter, step down converter. And I'm going to be checking functionality at every step of the progress just to make sure I don't mess anything up. So I'll check if the DC input works with the Tenjin, and if it doesn't, I already messed up, so I'll need to go back a step. So let's set this to 12 volts this time. And there we go, 11.8, that will do. That's the same as 12 volts pretty much. Well, not really, but it's a functional matter. So 12 volts. And looks like it's working correctly, everything is nice, so very straightforward. So let's move on to the buck converter and was it not resistor? Capacitor. I'm going to use a capacitor to make sure that it doesn't overvolt, so it has somewhere to go in case of a spike. Then I use these same buck converters for my cyberpunk katanas. So let's flip this back over. Let's disconnect the power for now. So for the input, it's pretty straightforward. We just wire up the input to the wires, and we use the fuse after the input. So let's get these revealed. And I think I want to hide these little chips with 3M tape. So it's good that I got a bit of excess wire. So for example, I could put this, where do I want it? At the very bottom maybe, just underneath the LED lights, or maybe on the stairs. Gonna clamp this one here as well. Yeah, I think that's a good location. So, but first, let's reveal the wires. We solder it, because obviously you can't just have the chips laying about, because they might touch one another, and I don't want that happening. They might conduct electricity and blow something up. So thanks. Actually, let's reveal a bit more. They're very well indicated as well for what is where. Same thing for the output, but we're gonna have the capacitor bridging the two plus and minus on the output. I'm trying to be quite sensitive with these as well, because these buck converters are quite sensitive, so they can break quite easily. And now we can actually set the voltage of this buck converter, so we do that with a voltmeter. Now we can adjust the potentiometer to drop down 12 volts to 5 volts. So let's connect the 12 volts input, and you see we have a reading of 11.02 for some reason, lower than 12. Well, that's because the potentiometer of the buck converter is already working, but we want it to go down to 5 volts. So let's adjust it. See, it's going down, going down, going down. 6.89, 5, 473. See, that sounds like it is 5.9. I want it under. .02, that'll do. So you can disconnect this now, and I'm going to disconnect DC input. Now we can actually glue this with 3M tape, because the potentiometer is done. We still have 4.86. That's good enough. Let's remove the DC connector because we don't need it. I would prefer to actually just solder the positive and negative wires together. That way I don't actually need to use that connector, and just keep it all together as one piece. Don't need it modular or anything like that. So let's suck the solder off, so I can put in the capacitor and the wires in. Yeah, that capacitor is quite important because if we get a voltage spike, if it overvolts a component like the LED strip, that means it's going to get fried. That did happen to me quite a lot with the katanas that I was making. And ever since introducing the capacitor, I haven't had a single voltage spike that damages any component. So that did this job correctly. So yeah, do use the capacitor. It sucks up any excess voltage spike and protects your components. So that's not a theory, that actually happened. And yeah, capacitor is much more important than you might expect. Like I might have expected. Like, I don't even know where the voltage spike it was introduced from, actually. Because technically, isn't the buck converter supposed to do its job and not over spike? Actually, oh, I think I do know why that happened. It's because the buck converters that I use, they are super tiny, so they don't actually come with any built-in capacitors for any surge protection. Is it surge protection or any voltage spikes, basically? So maybe that is why I was getting those issues, because the buck converters are so small. But I needed them to be so small so they would fit in the katanas. Anyway, guys, let's get back to the topic. And what I'm doing now is I'm mixing a two-part resin, A and B. Now, this is a bit new to me because the resins that I usually use are UV cured. Now, this isn't UV cured. This is a two-part resin that cures by mixing them together and just leaving them out in the air to dry. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm making the water features with the resin. Now, I don't like the way they look straight off as clear. I want them to be a bit more murky. So I'm going to mix some spray paint into a cup. And I'm going to use a wooden stick to add some color. Now, I'm actually kind of improvising here. I'm not really sure what I was going for, but I was just seeing how it goes. Plan this out, what you want it to look like, because I wasn't even sure. So what I done is I decided to mix some black and then some white streaks first, and then some black streaks on top to give it some nice contrast of some light and dark, some clear and obscure, if that makes sense. If you get the inside joke that no one will guess. Some light and dark, basically clear obscure means light and dark, and it's also a very good game that I really enjoyed.
And I'm trying to wait until the consistency is thick enough so I can make it look like it's drizzling down almost. Between all these three areas and the bottom as well. I'm just going to keep repeating this every few hours to make sure they're all dribbling down each other, because this isn't done yet. But it's getting there, I'm going to check this every few hours.
Yeah, well, the note being doing this every few hours is a very important note actually, because at first when you mix the part A and B of the resin, it's actually very runny, so you won't get to be able to get the resin to harden in a pouring state. You need to come back to it like 2 hours after it starts curing, because that's only then will it start hardening, and will you be able to actually harden it in a flowy state.
I really needed to insulate that, the bottom. So it's leaking.
Yeah, so my work mat that you see under the whole Tenjin portal is permanently damaged now by the resin, because I got loads of resin that hardened underneath. But hey, it's better to have the mat ruined rather than my table, huh? So yeah, that was another mistake that I've learned from. If you're gonna pour resin, make sure to secure every hole, because that hole might leak through with resin. Anyway, what I'm doing now is I'm also making the Fox modular so that you could remove it from the base in and out. Now it's going to be done with a metal rod shoved in its foot and super glued very tight. So the hole that I drilled in its foot is actually quite tight, so the rod fits in, but it fitted in quite difficultly, whilst the rod going into the base of the portal comes out quite smoothly, so that you can remove the Fox with the rod coming out with the Fox, but not being able to nudge it over.
So I used this drill bit, which is 3mm, whilst the one held in place with the Fox, that was 2.77. And also I need to make sure that I obviously not use drilling. So what I've done was I inserted this 3mm drill bit and reversed it. So the first hole that I did was 2.77, which is obviously the thickness of this rod. However, since I want this sliding in and out pretty easily, I used a 3mm one. But yeah, I've used the reverse motion so it doesn't actually crack any of the resin. But that fits very well now. I love how I made this piece really modular. So look, if you want to remove the Fox, you actually can. So although when it's in place, it is steadily in place, like it's not coming out at all. But if you want to remove it for viewing, if you pull it, I got this like 3mm steel rod in its foot, and it's really stiff in there, super glued tight. But it's actually easy enough to remove with one hand and easy enough to re-stick with one hand as well. So now it's placed, and same with him. Look, you got the soul amber in his hand, you got the glowing eyes and the glowing sword, but if you lift it, it turns off because you got pins in here that are removable. And if you place the right foot and then left foot, should realign. Where am I gonna do it? No, I lost the alignment. There we go. How sick is that? I got a bit nervous.